apparently I closed the lid before the upload was complete, so I need to redo the last 10 pages of the chapter.
Okay, okay. So we added public renderer body to player control, and that's going to give us body and material.color because this is a renderer component, right? So when we come back here after saving, player control will have body, and that's where we drag the one that we want to change. So just the main body. And now it'll work just fine because it's not messing with the player anymore, it's messing with that main body box, which has a renderer. Does that make sense, Scott? Okay, so do that and that'll fix that error. Alright. Cameron, what's up?
What errors, even though I changed something that was not on the script.
It's a big chapter. There's a lot of scripting in it.
I did all this last night.
We ignored the hover power.
Yeah, hover power is the word.
So do I need to add this
On
last
trigger
one?
stay? No.
Okay, okay.
You don't need any part of on trigger stay.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, so I'm going to start going through it and explaining what's happening. And you guys probably know because you're all intelligent people. Or, you know, maybe the book's terrible and I need help. Okay.
Liar is more likely.
Yeah.
I just got confused because there were certain spots of stuff we hadn't done yet, and then there was just like random like parts of the book we already did in class.
Right.
So like
That's your fault, though.
We didn't do the camera part.
Yeah.
And then we had that one part done in class after it.
So
it
you
was
thought we were caught up to that?
Yeah. It's time to go back and fix stuff.
Right. Okay, chapter 10. Here we come. Feel free to keep working. I will yell at you when important things are happening. Pay attention to me a little bit. So in play state scene 1-1, we have, well, in the setup state we have this code here, which changes where the player exists. And maybe you wanted to mess with that a little bit. And actually we could even do this in a better way entirely. What this does is it changes where the player is from 000, which is right next to the main camera in the setup state, to 50.540, which is in the middle of a 100 by 100 meter terrain. Yes?
What did the F mean again?
If it's a float, it needs to have an F. Otherwise, it's a double, and a double takes a lot more resources, computer resources. So there's floats, which are accurate to like 8 decimal places. And if you don't have the F, it assumes it's a double, which is accurate to like 20 decimal places. So that's the F. I'm pretty sure that your look at player camera is set to 50, like 10 and then 50. So this is going to be showing the player at an angle because he's at 40 instead of 50, which is right underneath that camera. Yeah, so player near center of terrain. And then we have to make sure in scene 1 that the player.rigidbody.isKinematic is set to false so that he can actually move around. Pretty simple stuff. So we set up 2 additional cameras in our scene. We've always had our main camera, which sits at -10 and +3, and it looks at our player. We could get cinematic about it and move him closer to our player and angle it down, and maybe it's from here. Maybe it's not weird like that. And then our setup state just looks even cooler. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's cooler. It'd also be probably not a terrible idea, since we have shadows and whatnot, to add things to our setup state. You guys don't have to do this. This is just... So, your final project is going to be modifying this game. And since you're going to make a game that is pretty cool and whatnot, you might as well spend the time to make it look good. Just a thought. Alright, so if I make you static, wider, wider. Oh, I see what's going on. No, I don't. Why is there no shadows?
Is it the lights that are on the wheels that are
could be overpowering?
the shadows?
Yes, absolutely. Good point. Let's make these red. And let's make their intensity back to like 0.5. There's my shadow. Okay. Everything's all entirely too bright in that scene. So I'm going to add a few more 3D cubes. So anyway, we've got two cameras. One's going to sit in wherever it's at and not move. And that's the look at camera. And it's going to work kind of like this, where it just follows me around, but doesn't move itself. But we should be able to click this button. I may have broken it. And switch to the following camera. And what the following camera does is it sets... Oh, I don't have that script assigned. Okay. There we go.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, game manager, main camera, look at following. Let's fix this state. Notice that even in the same level, we have a different state because the player works differently. In play state scene 1_2, we're using the following camera. If camera name does not equal following camera. And then we also have the ability to shoot, I believe. No, where's shooting? Why is that on in here? Okay, well, I'll put it in there later. Weird. Okay. This should at least fix our camera issues. Nope. Where are we? Following space camera. P and then this. Okay. So this camera keeps the player in the same position and just follows along at a certain height and a certain width behind.
Does it rotate with the car rotating?
It is not. So the player can rotate. I should just increase the power of the player. So rotate at 15.
Your car really likes being upside down.
There we go. No, I got it. It's all better. So now I can drive around and always see my car easily. Unless I drive behind something like this. Rotate. Okay, whatever. There are ways with shaders to make it so that you can still see your car behind this stuff. It's pretty fun to mess with.
Like an outline.
Yeah, an outline. is a good way to say it.
We repeat it.
Okay, so there's that. Following camera. Actually, this should go back to... Yeah, this should go back. That button should change. So play state scene 1, 2, state 1, 1, and then play state scene 1, 1. Save. Okay. So this code should allow me to switch between the two. Okay. Question, Cameron.
Errors. With my cameras.
With your cameras? All right. Let's look at them. Your for each statement needs to be inside your method. Can't have a for each loop outside of anything; it will never run.
Should you go in the play state, like state manager, or should you go inside the state update?
What's that?
Should you go inside the state update or the state manager portion of it?
So here, I'll show you. I'll show you here. So this here is your constructor. Your constructor runs when this script is created or called or instantiated. So whenever our state manager, our game manager, starts calling playstate scene 1 _ 2, this script will run once, our constructor. So this is the start method for our states. Okay? And it should go in here. Here's your for each loop for the cameras. If the camera name does not equal following camera, set it to false. And so this will run for everything in there. And then when it does equal this, now this is kind of confusing. Can anyone think of any reason, like Garen, can you think of any reason why we wouldn't just make it equal to this and make this true and the other one false?
In case we had more than 2 cameras?
Well, it's still nesting that way, isn't it?
Yes.
If it doesn't, if you just do the first if statement, it'll skip the second one, changing the other ones to false. So you want the other two to be set to false. Are you talking about does not equal?
Yeah, the not equal as opposed to a regular equal. So this is a for each loop, so it's going to run for every...
Yeah, mine was like, I had it like that on a look at camera.
Yeah.
And when I had it like that, it was
Oh.
not setting both cameras to false.
Got it. So what's going to happen is, well, it doesn't make sense.
I know, I didn't write the rules.
It doesn't make sense.
I know. But my camera was all messed up.
All right, I've got to see. I got to try
What
it.
if we did an if-else statement? Wouldn't it if-else get it?
For each game object camera in manager, if camera.name is following camera, make it true. Otherwise, set it to false.
Because that would skip the else statement.
So isn't that what you want?
Yeah, that's fine. Because this will only be true on the following camera. It'll be false on the other two.
But what if the following camera and the look at camera were both active for some reason? And that scene started.
Well, okay, so let's say all three are active. The for each loop still runs 3 times because it runs once for every one. So they're all active. The following camera, let's say it's second. So the first one's main camera. Camera.name does not, if camera name equals following camera. It doesn't, so that's false. So the else statement sets it to false. And then, yeah, no, it should work fine. If it was a long if statement, then this would happen and nothing else would happen, but it's a for each loop, so it should run 3 times.
Yep.
Okay. So, whatever makes more sense to your brain. I'm looking for the following camera. Yeah, it's however. I can't think of any reason why one would work better than the other. Aiden, you understand that dilemma? Do you understand that we can use both of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So back to the book. So we made 3 cameras. We set their position to what we did. So I'm going to do something crazy, and I want you guys to do the same. Okay, so if you're caught up, like you should be, then awesome. This will be easier than if you have to pause what you're doing and then move to something else. So in my setup scene, I move my player to this location. But I want to move him, let's say, to like 4 random locations on the map. Now I don't want them to actually be random, because maybe it'll, randomly put it below the map. That'd be no good. So I want to set 4 spawn points in scene 1 and have it pick one of those positions and make the player equal to that spawn point. Does that make sense? What this means is I can't do player.transform.position new vector 3 in setup state, because in setup state I don't know what those 4 transforms are. So this is going to be kind of interesting. So for now I'm going to, yeah, we can put it there as a default. That's fine. We'll just leave it there as a default. Default position. If rand spawn doesn't work. So let's go to play state scene 1-1. Let's make a list of transforms. And then we need to find them. This might have to be an array. This This might require more coding than I thought.
Why do you need the equals new list transform?
For reasons. For good reasons.
So just list transform spawn points wouldn't make a new list?
It would. You have to have this in there somewhere, regardless. You can put it in start, or you can put it in the constructor.
So you can just have new list transform in like start, and it'd be the same thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We'll leave it out for now and just worry about it later. That's fine. So let's take it in order. List cannot be found. Generic. So scene 1, save changes. Here's my scene 1. I wish, yes, thank you, some lights. I'm going to create a sphere, and this is going to be one of my spawn points. So I will name it spawn point. Duplicate, duplicate, and duplicate. So now I'm going to go to this, make it its own thing, Unity game object dot find. I wonder if I can, I don't think I can do that. I want to find all the game objects, not just one.
You can find them all by tag.
So find a game object by tag.
Yeah.
Right, and that creates an array, which is close enough to a list. We can make that work. I remember when the book said you would run into arrays. Like, here's a good example of running into arrays. Okay. Here's that. So let's do game object array spawn points, and then here at the bottom, so we know we're adding new code.
Do you want to play state 1?
I'm in play state scene 1_1. Okay. Okay, so this code right here, this line that we just wrote, spawn points is equal to game object dot find objects with tag, find game objects with tag, spawn point. An array is equal to an array. And so we're just populating our spawn points array with the array that is game object dot find game objects with tag.
Did you define spawn points as a array up, like further up in the?
Yes, yes, right here, game object, and then that makes it an array, spawn points.
Okay, is that just square brackets? Okay.
Square brackets, yeah. And so what we'll do next is we'll go to Unity. We'll create a new tag called spawn points with a capital S.
What if we didn't?
What if we didn't?
And we didn't do that.
Oh, I mean, it's very simple.
We're not gonna count on the
Is there a space in that?
No, there's not. I don't like spaces. Spawn point. So there's my new tag, spawn point. I'll select these 4 guys, tag them as such. So spawn points, okay. And then the next step is to find the player. Did we get the player? Yeah, here's the player. Randomly assign the player position to a spawn point. Okay. So player dot transform dot position is equal to spawn points.
So is the for each loop list supposed to be in play state scene 1 like the constructor?
Is what?
Is this for each list supposed to be in the constructor or the state update?
Constructor.
Oh, okay.
If it's in state update, it runs every frame. That seems inefficient.
Maybe.
You can run it just for the first time. That's all we need. Random range 0 to 3. Let me expand this out so you guys can see this a little bit better. And maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. I am not sure this will work, but this is supposed to work. Spawn points dot transform dot position. Okay. Semicolon. So we made an array of spawn points, and the cool part is we can have 50 spawn points if we want, and this code will still work. Well, I probably need...
An array.
Does an array have spawn.count? Garen, do you know?
An array would have length.
Length. Thank you. So spawn points dot length. Right? It's a method? Alright, hold on, let's just find out. So Control T, C# array.
Where is everyone?
We're just having fun.
Okay,
cool.
What's that, Rachel?
Jordan isn't here because he couldn't get his car started.
Okay.
I was playing with that last night. Playing with the physics.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got one little ball that drops and rolls down a slope, teleports back up to the top of the slope, goes back down, teleports back up.
Yeah, hell yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
So this should work. I've got an array of spawn points.
Oh, sweet.
But I have to find them kind of on the fly. I can't
Okay.
assign them in the inspector.
Sure.
So GameObjects.findObjects, GameObject with tag, is an array. And so I'm making my array equal to that array. And then I'm saying player.transform.position is equal to one of the items in the array, but we can make it a random range from 0 to the length of that array.
So as you add more, it will automatically update.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so maybe the array length is 3, so this is 3. Maybe the array length is 20, because I have 21 spawn points, so spawn points.length is 20.
Does the dot transform dot position need to be inside the brackets?
No. So imagine,
So the brackets is like in spot with player?
so imagine that this is this.
Okay.
Okay, spawn points 4 dot transform dot position, because this is a game object. This is an array of game objects, so I need to get the transform dot position of this game object
Okay.
and make the player equal to that. So that's what's happening. But it's actually
Instead of hard coding it,
this.
it's assigning a random.
Right. I like it random. That's what you want.
That's very cool.
A new game every time. Garen is working.
Yeah, but I've got one that spawned me right on the edge of my
Okay.
array.
Awesome. All right.
Oh, we need to do spawn points.length -1.
You sure?
Yep,
Okay.
because I got an out of range exception.
That's fine. I figured it would have gone by zeros, but that's fine. Maybe it starts counting at 1.
Random.range is
Yeah, the link-
exclusive, so the higher or the top point is, or it doesn't use that top point for it.
Oh, okay.
If there's 4 things in the index, they'll
Right.
have a length of 4, but the index will only go up to 3.
See, idiots. Arrays should be smart and count start 0. If there's 4 items in there, it should have 0 to 3. That's fine. Spawn points equals dot length minus 1. And you can have it, well, I mean, you'd have to do it different. Okay. So I am going to add this to the final project. Like, you guys will have to do this in your final project. But I have the video here, so you can watch it all later and get it to work.
I need access to your classes.
It's good stuff, right?
It's great stuff.
It's good
man.
stuff.
I've learned a ton in that 100 level.
Awesome.
Absolutely. A ton.
Awesome. Okay, so what were we talking about? Cameras? I think we were originally talking about cameras. Is it time for a break? I guess it's time for a break. All right, everybody take a 10-minute break. Come back at 10 after.
Did you get all of our levels put together yet?
No, not yet.
That's like a lot of work.
We'll see. Yeah, it's probably been a little bit of work. What's up? What's up, Maddie? Yeah, I cut my hair off. Did your school stuff go well?
Huh?
Did your school stuff go well?
No, because I was also working on, like, writing my report and finishing up this, and then I lost all my work, so,
That sucks.
like, I don't even have chapter 8. That's
Okay.
where I went, so, no.
Just steal it from Aiden.
Well, I'm gonna see if I have it on Canvas, so,
Okay.
I think I do, but I don't know.
The chapter 9 code, at least, the code is still publicly available on Canvas.
Okay, good.
So wherever the starting point of chapter 9 is, you just have to get through chapter 9 and chapter 10.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's how I get through.
that's a
So.
bummer.
Yeah.
That's frustrating. Because you have enough work as it is, right?
Yeah, and I haven't been able to, like, until 10, because.
I'm wondering if the array maybe the gene on
Alright, let's see if this works. I should probably turn off that and turn off that. Nope. Okay. No. Save. Play. Array index is out of range. See that? Interesting. What? Doesn't print any. So the tag must be wrong. Spawn point. Spawn point. Nope, that's the right tag. There's this. Karen, did you get it to work?
Nope.
Does it always say this? Index out of range?
Yeah, for some reason, even the ones that are tagged aren't going in there.
Yeah, I printed out everything for each game object point and spawn points, debug.log point.name, and it doesn't print anything.
Do we need to?
Saying you don't just return an MK array to it if it doesn't have anything like, or it doesn't find any game objects with that tag.
Huh.
Do we need to put a push on that? Is that what we're missing?
If no. Spawn points is not defined. Oh, spawn point. So unfair.
Okay, I'm in Unity scripting manual and it not. I think I'll have to figure out that.
Okay, we can do it a different way. Get children.
We have to initialize the array with the size.
So I tried that too.
Or we could do a list.
Can we turn an array into a list?
Versus, let's say, find a game object with tag, if it finds them, it'll return a list, but if it doesn't find them, it'll return an empty array. So I wonder if it's not like me trying to assign a list to an array.
Well, no. Game object dot find objects in tag is an array. Like public static game object array with string tag. So this find game objects with tag returns an array, and that's why they make it equal to an array of game objects. Returns a list of active game objects tagged tag. Returns empty array if no game object was found. Tags may be declared in tag manager. Even an exception if it doesn't exist, or an empty string or null.
I wonder if they mean that, or like an array, but what's working there? I don't like that.
That's not gonna work. Might work. Okay. So, it's just returning 0 because it's not finding that tag. Scene 1 has spawn point and it's tagged spawn point. We can tag it as respawn. Let's try that. Okay. Unity and scene O, save, play. Still 0. Alright, well I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it's not working. So that's okay. Let's try one more thing, because maybe it's just a matter of it being in the constructor that it can't find everything yet. That doesn't make any sense. It can see the cameras. So if input.get key down key code G.
Oh, you know what? We're adding the entire object that we're finding with that spawn point tag.
The entire game object, yeah.
Yeah, so we can't call the game object as the spawn point. We're going to call the vector 3 of the game object, right?
Well, so what I did is I did player.transform.position is equal to spawn points at that value transform position.
Gotcha.
So I did do that. Aha, it works now. So it's just not in that constructor. You see I've got 4 now and I can call the spawn point. It just can't be used on the constructor. So, so I can fix that. Okay, so we had some fun. The entire class can pay attention again. Sorry for that. Sorry for that. What happened was we wanted to do our random spawn point, and we built all our code, and none of it worked. And no, I'm not sure why. We put it in the constructor, and maybe that was a bad idea. Maybe the scene itself loads after this first frame where our constructor loads, and so all it can see is the stuff that it brought with it, like the player and the main cameras that are already there. So what we're going to do to fix that is in void state update, we're going to make a Boolean. So let's just make a public Boolean up here called looked for spawn points. So that's the name of our Boolean, and it'll be lowercase l because it's a variable. And then on the first frame of void update, yeah, we'll make sure this is false. Well, we'll make sure it's true. Okay. So looked for spawn updates. That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, false. And then if looked for spawn points is not true, so we need to put a not sign in front of it, then it will look for these spawn points. We don't need to send it to the debug log, and we don't need, we can leave spawn point.length, that's fine. But then we can do our random.transform position here. And then we can just make look for spawn points equal to true. Because we did. We looked for them, and then that statement will never run again after the first frame. Does that make sense logically? Hunter? Probably? Okay. So this is it's our own start method that we just made. And as long as we make sure that we make it true afterwards, it'll never run again. It'll check every frame, and that's kind of a bummer, but I think we can handle it. So spawn points, game object, find object with tag, respawn, debug.log spawn points.length to make sure that there is something there. And then player transform position is equal to spawn points, random range 0 to spawn points length minus 1, so 3, and then transform.position. Bet you that works. Let's close this. I'm sorry, you guys are reading this still. Sorry. This stuff here. Scott, do you understand how that works? Can you walk me through it? So we have some spawn points. We want to make a random pick every time we play the game to spawn us in a different spot. So maybe you've got a maze and there's 4 entrances and only 1 exit. There's lots of cool things we can do with it. So we've got these 4 game objects sitting in our level. And on line 37, we'll start with line 37. Spawn points is equal to game object, find game objects with tag. So that, you have a question, Shanta?
Still getting an index out of range.
Really? Well, let me make sure my code works first. Oh, it spawned it from the right spot, though. So maybe it's checking. Yeah, and there's it spawning from a different spawn point. I don't know why it spins. No, I turned the collider off on the spawn point. Maybe it's upside down, or I don't know. So you're getting index out of range, and so am I. But is it working? Or is it not working? Okay. So I get a 0. Okay, I see. Here's my 0 and my 0. So maybe I am somehow calling it still. I guess I need to save. Okay, still getting it once. Why? I don't know why. But I can handle that, that's fine. Maybe this? No, that doesn't make sense. Debug.log. Looking for spawn points. Semicolon. Weird. Why does it still work? It shouldn't work. Huh. Why is it running twice? Do what?
Is it still in your constructor also?
No, it's not. And I only changed this right here in that line. So I have this debug.log line plus spawn points.length, and for some reason it's being called twice. Well, so is looking for spawn points being called twice.
Is it attached to config? Or did you attach it to the shift twice?
It's play state scene 1-1, that's all. Interesting. Okay, I don't know the answer to that. That's fun. Alright, let me explain this code, and then we'll just move on. So, we get an array of everything that has this tag, and then we assign the player.transform.position to one of those random positions. You can see random range works by, here's a lower bounds and an upper bounds. My lower bounds is 0, and my upper bounds is however many objects are in my array minus 1. Because the length will give me 20 because there's 20 objects, but the computer calls 0 to 19 instead of 1 to 20. And then this looks for spawn points Boolean is false when I start, and then I make it true so that it doesn't run anymore, so it doesn't keep moving the player. If I had, if I didn't have this line, this should be fun. Yeah, so the player's just moving between all of these different spawn points every frame. So it's kind of important to have that set to true at the end there. Okay, enough of my insanity. Let's move on. Did anyone else have any questions about that? Okay. What else do you have for us, book? We understand the cameras. We moved around the player last week, didn't we? Did we cover speed and rotation speed? Maybe not completely.
We started to.
We started to? Okay. So the important thing to note in this line is input.getAxis. I talked about how horizontal and vertical works for controllers, and it works for WASD, and it works for up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, right arrow. And it's a number from 0 to 1. It's a float. So it's 0.5, 0.2, 0.3, 0.99, 0.99999, and that way we can get a joystick that'll give us a variable amount. When it's a button like A or D, then it's just 1 or it's -1. And you can look all this up if you just go to get axis. So here's get axis, public static floats, and then string axis name, and then returns a value of a virtual axis, the value being in the range of -1 to 1. This is frame rate independent, so you don't have to worry about frame rates giving you different values. Apparently you can use the mouse to do crazy stuff like this, but I'm not going to worry about that for right now. That's interesting. I didn't know you could do that. So what that means is I'm going to get the position of the mouse at the beginning of the frame, and then the position of the mouse at the beginning of the second frame, and whatever the distance is between those two in that one frame, that's how much I'm going to move left or right, or assign 0.5 or 1.5 or 10.5. So that way we can get our mouse control. You can see my mouse kind of jumping around. It's not very smooth. It's probably doing some kind of time.delta time too. We'll worry about that another day. So all we're doing here is we're assigning fore and aft to a number between -1 to 1, and we're multiplying it by 16 for our speed. We made this public so we could change it in the inspector. So let's say we're pushing left arrow, and we're getting -1 times 16, so it's -16. And then down here we just got rigid body.add relative force, 0, 0, -16. So that's what's happening right there, and that's how it's adding force based on our movement. Now if we were using a joystick and we had it held halfway down, get axis horizontal would be 0.5 times rotation speed of, well, let's call it 1. So then it's 0.5 again, and then it's 0, 0.5, 0, and that's how much torque it adds. And so this adds not every frame, but every fixed update, which is important for physics calculations because we want it to be the same independent of our frame rate. So fixed update runs every 0.02 seconds, or 50 times a second. And so it would add -16 to your relative force every 0.02 seconds. And then we'll totally ignore this on-trigger stay nonsense. It turns out that on-trigger stay is extremely resource intensive. And on top of that, doesn't work well. So we skipped it. But the premise is that we just add force in an upwards direction times hover power. Every frame that the collider is inside the ground. Or inside of anything. Which would really make it an issue because you'd run into an orb and the orb would enter that trigger and then your ship would go up every time you hit an orb. It was really dumb. Okay. So we went over, we didn't, I said, yeah. So our game data script got a lot bigger. Hunter. why do we have so many methods? Why do we have 4 methods? So there's void start, there's void reset player, there's void set player lives, and there's void set score. Do you know what any of these do? I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory, right? They reset the player. So it gets a little more complicated. Say you're on level 2 and you die. Do we want to start level 2 over again, or do we want to start over the whole thing? Well, we've been doing the whole thing, but we want to give the player the option to start back at where they were at the beginning of level 2. So we have to have values set for what their health was and what their score was at the end of level 1. And so that's why we have extra things. Public void set player lives. Well, we set that in the setup state to 5 or 10 or 1,000, but we also set that at the end of scene 1 or at the beginning of scene 2. And that way when we reset, we can go back to reset player, goes to player lives, player lives selected here. Player lives selected. Goodness. It is confusing. Yeah, there's your scene beginning score, so not whole game beginning score of 0, but scene beginning score. We'll set that in there. Set score, scene beginning score is equal to score, whatever it currently is. So public int player lives, this is keeping track all through the game. In the setup state, we say I want 5 lives instead of 2. So player live selected is 5, and then we set our actual current life to live selected. And so when we reset the player, we set him back to 5 lives for each level, and then we set the score to whatever the scene beginning score is. Okay. Hunter, does that make sense? You can follow the complex logic of that? Okay. Yeah, it's just mostly a matter of knowing that we have to do that. There's that set player lives, yeah. Keeping score. If statements. So in play state scene 1-1, we win. Well, we'll start with if we lose. If we die, we go to the lost state, and the lost state will give us the option to start back over at scene 1-1. The reset player function right here is what we saw a few pages ago in reset player here. So reset player lives and reset the score to what it was.
Give us an option, or is it just going to reset it for us? Since it just runs it as soon as you don't have lives anymore.
It'll run for you. Why would it give you the option to not lose once you've lost?
I meant you said it'd give you the option to restart.
Okay. So let's look at that. Here's lost state scene 1. Here's the buttons we're going to do. GUI draw texture. So this is the full screen splash screen that we lost. And then here's a button. Click here, a space to repeat level. And then click here, a return key to restart game.
We haven't done that yet.
So those are the 2 options. It's in chapter 10. You should have done it. But maybe it's not in the book yet so far.
Yeah.
Question?
So I just finished adding the number stop, push play, and all of those are kind of just prompts. How do I control it?
Have you finished chapter 10?
No.
Finished chapter 10. Okay. So here's the logic. So we reset our lives and we start our score here. That's in a game data script. And then we make the player is kinematic again, so he doesn't keep falling forever. And then we reset his position to new vector 3, 50.540. One of the issues you might have is you might be upside down. So maybe it'd be nice to add a line that says public transform.rotation is equal to 0, 0, 0. And then there's the win statement. If our score is greater than or equal to 2, which is honestly pretty low. Like, collecting 2 orbs is not hard. Manager switch state to the 1 state. And then just setting the player to is kinematic true. And then back to the center. And then here's where we set our scores in the 1 state scene 1 with this line on number 8, manager.gameDataRef.set score. And that way it'll keep track, which is a little ridiculous because we win if it's 2. So obviously, I think in the final project you have to add 2 more levels, so it's 3 and 4. So you'll need to know about manager.gameDataRef.set score. Maddie, this is all old hat, right? Like we've used other.gameObject.tag a bunch, right?
Yeah.
And we've done destroy other.gameObject a bunch.
So why does it use for the good orb on trigger enter and then bad orb on collision?
Good question. Why is on trigger enter for good orb, but on collision enter for bad orb? Two reasons. The better reason is that when you drive through a good orb, they don't want it to slow you down. So if it runs through a trigger, obviously that doesn't affect your collider. And your collider ideally is larger than your ship. But you don't want your ship to actually be able to smash through walls. So your ship has to have a actual collider on it somewhere. So it runs into a wall and stops. That's good, that's what we want. But if it runs into a good orb, we don't want it to stop. We want it to just keep going and just delete the good orb and give us the point. But if we run into a bad orb, we want it to knock the ship out of the way, slow the ship down, let it know that, hey, you should not have hit that. It obviously hurt you and took away one of your lives. So that's one of the reasons. It's a good reason. It's a polish kind of reason. I think that's probably why. Let's see if we can find out. Just going for the win. Player box collider. Decrease. Code is similar. Another good reason is you can set your trigger to be slightly larger than your ship. So if you graze by that orb, it'll still go. But you can have a close call with a bad orb and not die. Yes? Custom errors? Sure. So the next step is shooting, and that is pretty intense. And also, if the trail renderer didn't work well for you, if it doesn't look good for you, just delete it and use a particle system. I like those a lot. So.
It's, I forget how it says it here, but it says that it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. We would go up here. It's being data ref. That's fine that you missed it. You're not the only one. So right here, you're showing public clean data. Yeah, see.
So it's not recognizing the better enough because it's in these methods. How do I make it?
Okay, a lot of people are getting this error. Game data ref does not exist. What that means is that you haven't declared it up at the top. So here's my... Come on, Aiden, you can figure this one out. If it doesn't exist, that means you haven't created it, so you should probably create it, right? So up here at the top, no game data ref, no game data ref, no game data ref.
So is it
No, it's a type game data. It's one of your scripts.
Oh.
So if you're having that error, game data ref doesn't exist in this context, please just add it. Capital D on data.
I had it created in the start method. I deleted it. It was down here.
Oh. Oh, and you've got it game data name ref. Not
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I switch that to this, will I
So delete that.
delete this whole thing? That's for. Okay.
No, look, there's my line a few lines down. This one. Do you have this line too? That's creating it again, and we don't want to create it again. We want to reference the one we already have. Yeah. So you guys are probably getting a lot of errors. Power through and finish chapter 10. And then what you will find is in your book, Appendix B has all of the code for every script. So you can go in here and test your scripts. Like this one here. Rachel's got a lot of extra stuff here. These two lines, I think, and then maybe this line. Okay, we don't have this one.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Okay, so there's that. Did we do shooting last week? Have we done shooting before? Do we instantiate stuff?
No, not yet.
Okay. This is the crazy code that allows you to shoot stuff. It usually works. It usually works. Not always. One of the problems I've had for semesters and semesters is that no matter how I put it together, when I shoot stuff, it just builds a new bullet and the bullet just falls straight down. If it shoots out in any direction, it's because I have a collider around the player and it's like exploding out of the player. I have fixed it this semester though. It's been working fine for me. But essentially we have a new variable of the type rigid body named clone. And this new rigid body is equal to this instantiate method, which creates a new projectile, sets its position to the same as the player, and sets the rotation the same as the player. And then this as rigid body typecasts it from whatever it is, maybe a game object, to a rigid body. Or maybe just make sure it has a rigid body. I'll bet it says down here. Where are you? Energy pulse. This, since the variable clone stores a rigid body and energy pulse is of type game object, energy pulse has to be converted to a rigid body type. The as operator will cast or convert the game object to a rigid body. And then what we do is we set clone to be in front of the player and a little bit higher than the player. And then we set its velocity to be in a certain direction, vector 3 forward times 50, and that shoots it forward. That adds velocity to it. Yes, question?
What is
Player, so it's game manager, right?
Yeah.
The game manager has whatever player controls attached to the player.
So it'll be all.
Yeah.
I think it's this trail render.
What?
I think it's a trail render.
Oh, it's a cool method. It does stuff.
So basically what me and Mr. spent 30 minutes trying to do with the
Particle system?
particle system.
Nah, particle system's way better. I don't like using the trail renderer, but it's lower resources. Yes.
I think that we changed color and it's rotating.
So that's because your player doesn't have a renderer. And so you need to change your script very slightly so that picked color changes a render of the type body. So first off, make a new variable, public renderer body. And then down here where we change the color, picked color, change that get component renderer to be body. And then in your inspector, under the player, now you've got this public variable, and you need to assign what you want to have it change color. Okay? and that'll fix it. Okay.
I can't access the shader.
The shader? Oh, the default is default. So you need to create a new material and drag it in there.
Also, it's the same that it doesn't exist. At the top of your method.
Did you create it?
Yes.
Did you save it?
Yes.
Did you go back to Unity?
Yes.
Unity has to recheck that script.
Yes.
So it still says this doesn't exist?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, because your space bar is not raising up while raising up. So I think you have to tap the name on it. That's alright, This is a variable now. Okay. Just like manager is a variable.
But we have to create it, give it a type, to make it private or public, or exist. So here, type game object.
Oh, you don't have that.
Actually, I'm not sure.
Is that in PlayState scene 1-1?
Yes.
This line.
Okay.
What's up, Maddie?
So your player is right here, and your cube is here. So it's rotating around the player. The player is rotating, and you just need to set your cube here.
When I play my game, I just kind of like instantly win the first level.
Is it on a good orb? Are you finished making the game?
I haven't done the good. I'm doing the good orbs right now, but I noticed that earlier that
Okay.
it just instantly wins because I have the life already above 2, so it's just sending me straight to the next.
Well, it shouldn't be set on lives. It should be set on score. If your score is above 2.
Yeah, so I think maybe it's aligned with those two things.
You can figure it out. That's pretty simple stuff. Okay, definitely time for a break. Let's come back at 20 after. And then we'll finish up chapter 10.
Tell me it's obsolete.
That's fine.
It's on pursuit. Maybe in the game object or looking on it's obsolete.
Everybody that wants to know about particle systems, let's spend 2 minutes learning about particle systems. Because it's so much fun. It makes everything look really good.
The fire key, should that be in state update so that it's always running?
Yeah,
looking for it?
definitely. So I have my gorgeous particle system here. We'll full screen it. I don't like the trail renderer, so I'm going to make mine a particle system. Here are my settings. First off, I'm going to go all the way down to renderer and open that up and assign it a material. Let's do just like default material for now. Although if we're using regular default particle is probably what you guys have. Here are some fun options like render mode mesh. and then setting this to the default material. Now it's just creating a bunch of cubes. Or setting it to be capsules, cylinders, planes, spheres. Spheres is probably... we'll leave it at cubes for now because that's what I like. Alright, we'll just go back to billboard and then the default particle. The first thing that most of you are going to have an issue with is this one right here, simulation space local. Change that to world so that when you move this around, come on. Oh, it killed itself. Oh no. Oh, damn it, that's frustrating. Control new, save changes, game object, 3D object, cube, and particle system, and renderer, material, particle.
Do you have to specify controllers at the top of the screen?
You shouldn't. Yes, this is what I'm looking for. So that the particles stay where they're created, no matter where I move this guy. So this is really useful. Let's go down and change the emission here to 100. And let's change the shape to a sphere. And then, good God, let's change the speed to 0. So now what I've got is 3D drawing. Okay. Now, it gets kind of lame that they just disappear. So what I like to do is I like to go down to size over lifetime and turn that on. And then change the size down to 0. And so what they'll do now is they will get smaller over time and kind of like disappear. And that's a lot prettier, a lot smoother, a lot happier. Now they are all the same size, and that's frustrating. So this neato trick right here is in these downward triangles. So we'll go to start size, random between two constants. And so start size is anywhere between 0 and 1. I'll make it 0 and 2 for fun. And so what that will do is create some big ones and some small ones. And that's fun. And way more fun when it's actually spheres. So I'm changing it back to that. So if it's if you want, you can add just a smidge of gravity, 0.1. And that way they'll follow your ship and then slowly fall. Maybe you want to add ground. I guess most of you already have ground. That's way too bright. Where's my... there. What?
It'll grab you.
Okay, there we go. And you can watch them. Right now they're falling through, which is not what I want, so I'm going to go down to my particle system and I'm going to add collision. And then I'm just going to have it collide on world instead of planes. And the default is for them to bounce, which is kind of weird. There we go. So I don't need them to bounce, I just want them to kind of sit there. So we'll turn the bounce down to like 0.2. I'm kind of surprised that my particles aren't emitting shadows as well. Kind of strange. Cast shadows on. There we go. That's gorgeous. Isn't that pretty? So furthermore, if we have our sprite's default material, we can do fun things like color over lifetime. It can start out at white and then go to a dark red. This can be another nice way to change, to make it kind of fade out in a way that you can't really see. If you change it to almost black, for example, it'll be getting smaller as time goes on, but like smoke does, it will also just kind of disappear in color as well, into the backdrop of whatever you see or whatnot. So let's go back to billboard and let's go back to particle default. And so that's kind of pretty, but I don't think there's enough of them. So I'm going to change the shape to be twice as big, and then I'm going to change the emission to 1,000.
Oh gosh.
But now I need to make the max particles like 50,000. Come on, one more. There we go. All right. So there we have that.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because it's fun. Okay, so that's not what I wanted to change. What I wanted to change was giving it just a little bit of speed. So I'm going to give it a random speed between 0 and 0.5. So that they don't all just sit exactly where I created them, but they do move just a little bit. So even if we turned gravity all the way off, there would still be some movement of my particles, and that is a good thing. What do you guys think?
I prefer that over gravity.
What's that?
I prefer that over gravity.
Yeah.
Especially for an energy blaster, at least.
So now you can get your bullet, and when it shoots, it goes. But maybe the lifetime's too long, so we'll change it down to 2 seconds for your particles. Maybe that's way too long. We'll change it to 0.5. That's right. That's what we're looking for. So the final thing is, instead of emitting over time, we'll have it emit over distance. And we'll say this one, you have to be a lot smaller with this one. So it'll only build when you move the particle itself. And so that's really nice. If something is, sitting still, it's not emitting particles. It's just when you shoot it. And 50 might be too many. I might do that 10. And then... Got it? So that is particles. Kelby, does that answer a lot of your questions?
Yeah.
You think you can make something awesome with that? Okay. Good. You better. Or you get a 0. I'm just kidding.
Please help me figure out why it's there.
Yes, okay. We can go back to a little bit of debug and then finish the chapter. What's up?
It's saying that right here, controller. It's actually talking about this script. So this is quite simple.
Controller doesn't exist. So you need a private state. You need a thing. I will show you what it is. Test particle. No, I'm gonna make you do it in your own book. In that book.
The rest of the code. We'll be fine.
1, 1.
Controller equals. So it's like player control, that controller.
and then this assigns it to the player controller. All right, let's finish up.
I just
Quick thing.
mine says the list of
System.collections.generic.
thank you.
All right, so we've got shooting now. Oh crap, that's the end of the chapter. So as soon as you got shooting, shooting does fancy things like changing your bad orbs into good orbs. And now that you've gotten rid of the trail renderer and replaced it with something awesome like this particle system, I don't prefer, I'm going to fix it, this is nitpicking. I'm going to change this to like a fancy green, and then it's going to close through a fancy blue, and that is going to be way cooler. Okay, you guys want to know the awesome last coolest thing about making a cool particle effect? Close this particle system and add a light. Give it some shadows. Give its range to like 5 and its intensity to 2. And then let's change the actual sun to dark. What you'll get with an actual light is your bullets will now have like cast shadows. It's an energy pulse, right? An energy pulse should cast light.
Can you just add a light to the object that the particle system is on also?
So it's a component, the light component.
Oh, okay.
So use that. I also don't like how my particle system gets smaller. I want it to do it kind of linearly, not in a curve. So I'm going to change this to something like that. And so that should get smaller on a more regular scale. Maybe I need it to get smaller faster. Anyway, lights. They're awesome. Put them in your bullets. Okay, let's talk about the final project. I am going to edit this slightly to change the date. This is due December 5th at 7:59 a.m.
So all we have left in this class is the final?
Pretty much. I will probably teach you stuff next week about the final. And then we'll go to course modules and in class add assignment final. Where are you? Final project. Deprecated. This one. Indent one level. Add item. So is this the right one? Okay. Here is your final project. With the state machine game built in the book, create 2 more levels. So play state scene 3, play state scene 4. Create a level select option. So you can put that in the setup state or in its own state. And it's just going to be 4 buttons. Play level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And this is the fun, crazy bit. Create 4 power-ups for a total of 5 shots to choose from. So right now you can shoot single fire. You can shoot rapid fire every frame. I want you to be able to shoot like a triple shot, so it's da-da-da. And then I want you to shoot a shotgun style 3 bullets at once in different directions. These can be different colored bullets, different shots, differently sized bullets, etc. But the user needs to be able to switch between them at will. So pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and activate them via driving over a power-up. So you can't shoot your shotgun until you run over the shotgun power-up, and then you can shoot your shotgun power-up.
So you need to run over the power up and then select it, or like does light speed just like kind of cheat?
It can auto-select it, but you need to be able to switch. So Unreal Tournament style or Quake style, you run over your rocket launcher, and now it's part of your 1 through 10.
Okay.
One of the requirements of your capstone class is that you can build an inventory. This will build into that. This is a way to pick between 1 through 5. So if the player is below the level, or fell off the side, or fell upside down, reset the player to center, or kill and reset the level. That seems kind of unfair. I was so close. Make sure to leave your mark on the code. So that means comments. That means cheat codes. That means it's not just named player, or it's not the same exact thing. Just make it your game, right? You guys are game designers. You're here designing games. You have the capabilities. Use them. And then this, make sure you're using the scene manager. I'm going to change that. You don't have to do that. And then build a copy to show your mom and to turn in. Okay, so let me edit this a little bit.
What do you mean you're going to change it where you don't use the scene manager?
Right now we're just using application.loadLevel. In Unity 5.3 they changed all that to scene manager. And I don't need you to use that. So where's strike through? Oh, I'll just delete it. And then additionally there is one that is add random spawn points to each level and have the player spawn from one of them. So add spawn points to the player randomly. No, that's still not what I mean.
Is there final for game level going to be a group or individual?
Individual.
Individual?
Yeah.
What is it going to be?
Not sure yet.
I was wondering if I could make 2 of my finals in one game.
Fuck
just
no.
make it really good.
I doubt it. Okay, and then we've got a rubric here which does the grading, which I'll have to edit as well because this one's not thing. So I'll change this to.
So that's how I always have good grades in game level 1, just going off the rubric.
Okay. Okay, so that's there, and that's in your in-class Module 11, Chapter 10, final project there. I will upload this video